Welcome to the Evolving Digital Self podcast, where we explore the conscious use of technology. Listen in to hear thought leaders and other guests discuss the human relationship with technology and learning to thrive in the digital era. Hosted by the author of the international best-selling Digital Self-Mastery series and Being at Work, Dr. Heidi Forbes Usta.
Welcome to the Evolving Digital Self podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Heidi Forbes Usta, and today we have a wonderful guest. She's joining us from New York. This is Susan McPherson. She's a serial connector and the founder and CEO of a social impact consultancy, McPherson Strategies. Welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you, Heidi. I'm thrilled to be here.
So we met just recently over in Warsaw, of all places, at a conference called Masters and Robots. Now, that doesn't necessarily sound like something that social impact and the relationship with technology people would be there for, but wow, what an amazing conference, wasn't it?
It was indeed, and I got a few laughs from people wondering if it was an S&M conference, but I had to remind them, no, it was actually technology and artificial intelligence and how people are using technology today for everything and anything.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And I mean, even the funny thing is, you know, I'm sort of a serial connector in my own right. And so it was kind of amazing to be sitting there on the couch in the green room, and we discovered all the different overlapping in our own network. So I think we get to see that there is, you know, the world is a small place no matter where you go from. And it's pretty exciting.
And it's getting smaller. I mean, I joke sometimes that we're all third cousins. And given that, we should never anyways, but never speak ill of anyone, because inevitably you are connected to that person.
Absolutely. Or if you're not, somebody else is that you're close to. Yeah. You never know who it's going to get back to, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. So I would love to just get right into it with you. I think there's some really cool stuff that you're doing, and with your social impact stuff, you know, for our listeners, they want to talk about, or they want to learn more about how how they can evolve their relationship with technology and how that might impact their business. And, you know, with social impact stuff, there's so much that you can do with technology because your reach is so much bigger. So I would love it if you would sort of share with us how your relationship with technology has changed over the years and how that might have changed the way that you do business or the way that you connect people.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's twofold, obviously, from a personal perspective. And then there's the work that we do that desperately needs to live on social platforms and technology platforms to actually move the needle, right? I mean, if a tree falls in the woods and you're not there, who's going to know? But I'll start with the personal side first. When I was in high school and college, I was known as now what you would say somebody doing social media before social media. I was sharing articles, ripping them out of newspapers and putting them in the, postal mail, U.S. mail, and mailing them off to friends that didn't live in my hometown. And for the friends that did, I would just cut them and, save the articles until I would see them. So obviously with the advent of email and the internet, it completely, updated that habit. So it was a very natural move for me. And I credit a lot of my business connections and certainly the growth of McPherson Strategies, which is our consultancy, with using social media platforms effectively. But what I did do early on was something I think that helped me, and that was listen twice as much as I speak, which obviously isn't going to be the case on this podcast, but use Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and all these means to actually mine data and find out interesting tidbits about people rather than just talk about myself or my clients. And I equate it to the fact that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So therefore, we should be listening twice as much as speaking. And I take that to the platforms. So, and I'll take Twitter, for example. When Twitter launched, I got on it early, which was certainly a good thing, and created something called CSR Chat, which stands for Corporate Social Responsibility Chat. And basically it was a Twitter chat that used that hashtag and then actually brought people together in the corporate social impact space. And by being a convener, you end up being a person who is remembered, who is acknowledged, who's invited to the room where it happens. And I started that in 2010, which, seems like, it'll be a decade soon. But it still has a life of its own. And I sometimes call it an albatross because I can't get rid of it and I make no money off it. But I do it because I love connecting NGOs and corporations and high net worth individuals, because when you bring all those people together, you can actually affect positive change. Now, when you take me out of the equation and just look at social movements over the years, Move On was one of the first ones that comes to mind that actually really took advantage of using technology to reach out to do grassroots fundraising, grassroots advocacy. And they were really kind of the first ones. And then they set the bar, and all of a sudden you have lots of other political advocacy. But then you also had social movements. I mean, look at Bono and the Global Fund and what they've done with RED. And that's all technology driven. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's almost like if you can't fundraise now unless you have a network of high net worth individuals, unless you are using technology, whether it's pushing buttons on sending 1,000 emails or, sending photos via Instagram. I mean, no NGO could survive without using technology.
And I think that you're spot on there, is that particularly in the fundraising space or just building a movement around things, if you're not in social media, there's no way for you to get access to the greater population of people. And that's really the best way to get a movement going.
Well, and I'm sorry to interrupt. I was saying even beyond the social media component, from technology perspective, to do data mining to find out the populations that could be potentially sympathetic and empathetic to a cause is done the same way advertisers find out who's going to buy, Rice Krispies that have cinnamon on them. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, I serve on the board of the U.S. arm of the UN High Commission for Refugees. And we needed to identify pockets of people in the United States that would have empathy towards refugees. So you immediately think of diaspora. You immediately think of those that came before that are then helping their family. But believe it or not, in doing some really deep data mining, we found out that it would be faith-based institutions. The true, believers in Christ, et cetera. And then also, the Mormon Church, huge, I guess that's faith-based, but big supporters of refugees. But again, that was technology that allowed us to uncover that kind of, gold mine, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. And how do you, because you've sort of observed this change over time. How do you think that has impacted the change within organizations in terms of the dynamic of sort of, it used to be the technology group was just sort of, they were managing how the machines worked, basically. Right. And now they're managing how people engage and how people interact and how we understand why and how they interact. And so the dynamic of how organizations work, how have you observed that changing?
Yes. I think it's mirrored every other industry, right? I think if you look at travel, financial services, hospitality, every single industry, technology is no longer kind of its own little silo. We're all technologists, right? Mm-hmm. Whether we do coding or we fix the copier, although I don't even think anybody copies anymore. So that's no, but we used to have, now it is much more like bundled with innovation. And how are you going to remain competitive? And how are you going to be, literally putting out the best product or, making the most impact on the cause that you're funding or supporting? So, I think it's just like everywhere else. It means job security for people. It means nonprofits have to fundraise even more because they have to be able to afford these types of people that, command a higher salary than a traditional, nonprofits fundraiser who's had 3 or 4 years of fundraising experience. Mm-hmm. And it's also, there's, again, so I wish I could say it was separate from everything else, but I think it's part and parcel.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Have you felt that change as well for your own practice? And have you changed as an individual in the way that you engage with people because of that transition?
Well, because we primarily focus on the communications of social impact, so we'll work with corporations on how they message and talk about the good that they are doing, as long as, of course, it is authentic and meaningful. Mm-hmm. And there is something about the written word that is still vitally important. So I will say that, yes, we've changed in the sense that things have to be tighter, shorter. Things should be written with brevity. The distribution channels may be a bit different. In the past, we would, maybe 10 years ago, only focus on going to the media to tell the story. Now, we find influencers that have massive followings. We, we'll do specific campaigns with hashtags to get other followings. I'm trying to think. We'll also do a lot more with video than we would have in the past. And not to mention Snapchat and Instagram and, some of these other platforms, very, very image driven. When I was growing up, I would wait 2 weeks to get my photos after I took them. And then you'd get mail and it would be the most exciting thing. And then half of them you'd throw away because they were so bad. Right. Yeah, I mean, my God, like people today, everything is instantaneous, instant gratification.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it changes the way that we consume things because we're like, throw it away. Yeah. Take another one.
Which is not good for our planet. Thankfully, it's a good thing digital doesn't end up in the landfill, although the technology does, the phones and everything else. So, and we're always encouraged to continue buying new phones so it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. And so on a personal level, are you constantly changing your technology, or do you find that you sort of found what works and you stick with it?
Yeah. I mean, I force myself to keep current, because I don't want that old woman who, is still like, oh, let's just watch black and white TV. I make myself keep up. I mean, I have to tell you, I don't gravitate towards Snapchat, but, I definitely went the route of getting on Instagram, I got on Google Plus, but I don't really stay on it anymore. But I try to stay relevant on all these things. But Twitter has been, and LinkedIn and Facebook for professional reasons have been the most helpful and for my team.
So on a personal basis, are there particular favorites of technologies or things that you do, or even, routines and behaviors that you have around managing your technology that make things work more seamlessly and fluidly for you?
Well, I'm as mentioned, Twitter is probably my number one where I go and where I find the most information and make the most connections. And I would be remiss if I didn't use, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's not Hootsuite, the other one.
Buffer?
Oh, no, TweetDeck.
Oh, of course. TweetDeck, yeah.
Yes. Forgive me. And I find that is such a way because I organize all what I'm following in the hashtags, and that way life is much more simple. I don't spend as much time on Facebook the last few years just because I find it's not as searchable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then news. I mean, I've always been a voracious reader and consumer of news. I mean, my first job out of graduate school was working for USA Today, which, in the 80s revolutionized the news business. I mean, obviously the news business has changed 1,000 times since then, but at the time, it was revolutionary. First of all, bringing color. Second of all, a national newspaper. I mean, that was just unheard of because of everything local. But, the new technology, I mean, they were very much on the forefront of technology. But ever since then, I have always, been current affairs geek, and so I still, now set up various news feeds to follow, and just somehow keep relevant. I feel though that you miss a half hour and it's like the world changes. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what it's going to be like, in 20 or 30 years from now. But it also terrifies me because funding for journalism is drying up. And we are living in a time where, you have people saying things are fake news that aren't, but there's no way to prove they're not. And that terrifies me.
Yeah. No, I think that there's a lot to be said for that because it's, because there is so much that's crowdsourced and that just comes, people go to Wikipedia for facts, and they may not be taking it with the filter of that this is, these are not checked facts. They are, they're.
Well, and you go to any newsroom today and the staff of fact checkers is minimal, if not none. And that puts a lot of pressure on the writers, and the writers aren't paid enough to deal with. I mean, it's a vicious circle. And, and then inevitably mistakes happen. And then you point it and you say, oh, they're terrible. But we put people in the news media on the same totem pole as Congress people. So.
Yeah. But in a way, I mean, we have to put it into perspective. That's not necessarily the technology that's the problem. It's more the culture, the way the culture is shifting, and that we have become so much more tied to different influencers rather than really, making sure that whoever we're following actually really knows what they're talking about and they've been verified.
Yeah.
So, it's easy to go with a shiny object. And I think maybe that comes along with, that things are changing so quickly. We don't take the time to check.
No. And everybody's in a hurry and everybody's, rushing to the next thing. I know.
Yeah. I want to go back to the connecting piece, because connection is so much a big part of what motivates me for the evolving digital self piece, is that, when we're connected and we understand, what's going on, we can track what's going on, and we can verify whether it's about our bodies and what's happening with our health, or whether it's about what's going on with our communities and how we connect to them, or what's going on in the whole world. Technology can really enhance that, that experience and help us really understand. And so I'm just curious, what are your favorite technologies to use, or do you even use any to, one, help you keep in track of what's going on for you, and also how you use it to connect to your world and your sort of, your network?
Well, this is going to sound awfully dull, but email and texting are my two biggest means of connection. But I do still make phone calls. But I don't do it anywhere near as much as I did. I grew up in a time where we had party lines and call waiting and busy signals and everything else. But I will say I absolutely use email to connect people. And, when I have a party at my home, I always connect everybody afterwards, except obviously removing a few people that may not like to have their emails shared. But I find that, if you come to my home, which I have many book parties and various events, I want to make sure that there's a community that forms, because that's my goal, right? I figure that's at least some sort of vetting, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of various paperless posts and party invitations, I mean, I've used all those. Again, I don't think of them as big technology, but just also I still actually write letters and I put them in envelopes and I mail them. And granted, they may never get read, but
oh, but I think they do even more. I mean, there's something so wonderful about when you actually get mail in your mailbox, in your physical mailbox. It's so much more special,
It is.
Of course, that's if it doesn't get caught in between all the flyers and things that, and you actually find it. I think I check my mailbox only every third day because I get everything else electronically now, which is kind of sad. Do you use any well-being trackers or any meditation apps or any other things like that?
Well, I should. I didn't buy at one of the TEDs I was at a few years ago. They gave away Headspace, and I used it, and I used it twice. So I'm terrible about that, and I probably need that more than anything because I have such ADD. I'm like la 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 la, and I'm the one New Yorker who doesn't like yoga. I swear. You're at a party and you say you don't like yoga, you look like you just said, I like Trump. I mean, it is horrible. People are like, rare. How do you not like yoga? And I get bored, and it clearly shows that yes, I'm type A. Yes, I have high blood pressure. Yes, I'm always like, what's next? What's next? And that's just who I am. And I can't change. But I'm not unhappy. I'm not like this ball of stress. I mean, I enjoy what I do, which is which I think is what keeps me alive and sane. And I have the most wonderful friends in the world. And the work that we're doing is actually really rewarding. Yeah. So I figure the people who go to yoga and find so much solace may not be getting the high from other things.
Or that's where their high is. I mean, we're all so different and everybody needs to find their thing. And your thing that you get the high from is the connection with other people, it seems like, and the ability to have impact. So, I mean, if that's what brings you well-being, who's to say that that's wrong or right? That's just that's your reality.
And exploring and travel. And I just have always been so people curious. What makes people happy, what motivates them, that kind of stuff just fascinates me in a very, not a nosy way, but in a way of just, I think it's a wonderful thing to be at an older age because you have so much more understanding when people are at different perspectives than I think when you're younger and you think everybody thinks just like you. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason to meet everybody. But then as you start to realize we are all so freaking different. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, I think one of the first lines in my book is, the anomaly is the norm. And I mean, it's just we have to accept the fact that we're all very, very different. Yes, we have so many things in common, but the beautiful thing about it is that we are all different. There's no two people that are exactly alike. And we're going to, even identical twins. I have nieces that are identical twins and they're such different personalities.
Wow. Totally alike? Are they?
Oh, yeah. And the funny thing is they look exactly like my sister.
Ah.
So, now they're starting, she has always looked sort of young and cute because she's sort of that preppy, cute look. And now her daughters are starting to look more and more like her. So it's like they're triplets.
Oh, that's great. How old are they?
The twins are now 21.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a great age.
I know. It is. They're great kids.
Oh, and now I'm like 21. My God. I can't even remember 21.
I know.
So sad.
So I have a funny question for you. If you were able to, if you were sort of looking 10 years ahead, which, in these days with the way technology is moving, 10 years ahead is a long, long way.
Yeah.
What would be your wish in terms of how technology would be able to change the way that we do things or maybe remain the same? What would be your wish?
One of my main hopes is that we replace fossil fuels with solar and wind technology. We have the technology. We have the knowledge. We certainly know the benefits that those new forms of energy will provide us and also will save us. And I really hope that within the next 10 years, we make the switch because the planet is not going to survive if we don't. That would be number one. A second would be, how do we use technology to raise the actual people at the base of the pyramid up so that they can be members of society, like truly, contributing to and benefiting from the economic infrastructures we've put together. And this makes me sound like such a like a noble, but I mean, these are things that technology can really make a difference, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, and then third, I do a lot of, as mentioned earlier, a lot of advocacy and fundraising and visibility around the whole refugee crisis. There are now about 66 million people who are displaced around the planet. And when I say displaced, they're either living in camps or they're on the run. And those people, in most cases, can't go back to their homes. So how can we figure out some ways, some technologies that enables them to work, to be able to be contributing members of whatever location they are being housed or they're stuck in until they can go home. And again, that's with the hope that maybe someday they can go home because that's what they want more than anything. Mm-hmm. So I mean, those would be three big buckets that I would like to see in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
We have it. We have the technology. We have the wherewithal, and there's the money to actually implement it. When you look at the millennials that are now ending up being billionaires from technology companies. So how do we galvanize all that?
Yeah. So, I would love to hear I think our listeners would probably really like to know, because a lot of people feel like, oh, well, social impact, that's like beyond me. And a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs in their own right, and maybe want to have some way that they can dip their foot in giving back or making their businesses have some kind of a social impact in some way. Do you have information like that on your website, or is there tips that you can give to people that can help them think about how they might, in their own way, whether it's small or big, have some kind of a social impact and actually help making some of those 3 wishes actually come to fruition?
Sure. You know, it's interesting when the Women's Philanthropy Institute 3 or 4 years ago came out with a study, and they actually showed that women who are earning the least actually give the most in terms of the percentage of their income back to causes. Okay. So what that tells me is every single one of us can be a philanthropist. We don't have to be a millionaire. We don't have to be a billionaire. We don't even have to be, at 50,000, because every little thing that you do can be a positive thing. If you are an entrepreneur and you're creating a small business or starting out small, I always say it's better to turn a rowboat around. It's easier to turn a rowboat around than a cruise ship. So when you're building that small organization, ask your 10 or 20 employees, what are they passionate about? Okay. And host a small fundraiser or have them volunteer or give them time off so that they can volunteer for those organizations. Okay. That's one little thing, but by you as the business owner making that possible for them, not only are you making your employees happier and in essence making them more productive, but you're giving back. Okay. It doesn't have to be this huge expenditure. You can look at your packaging. Are you using the minimal materials to package the goods that you're selling? Are you recycling in your company? Are you not using 15 pieces of plastic every day that end up in our landfills and inevitably in the oceans? See, all these things are little that you can do. We're coming up on an annual day of giving that was started 6 years ago called Giving Tuesday, which is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, which was created for severalfold. And I was part of the team that originally created it, which really, really proud of. But Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, these are all days to go out and spend money. And I'm all about spending money. It's good for the economy. But good Lord, there should be a day where we honor and support all those that are either trying to do good, doing good, or helping others do good. And that's what Giving Tuesday is. And if you want to find out anything about Giving Tuesday, you can go on and go to www.givingtuesday.org, and you will see 1,000 different opportunities to give back.
What a great suggestion. I love that. Giving Tuesday. Well, so we'll make sure that we have all of that information in the show notes, because I think people are really, that I find that really inspiring. We talk a lot about the overconsumption in our society, and yes, of course, we need to invest in our society, and consumption is good to a certain extent, but we also need to balance that out with the giving piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I do go back to that, if you work for a company that you feel could be more humane and could be doing some more around corporate social responsibility, voice your concern. Tell your HR department, tell your boss. This is the time now where companies are seeing that as they stand for something beyond just the business at hand, they are looked at they are held in higher esteem. They're able to hire better employees. They're able to keep those employees. And if they are selling to the consuming public, they're going to do a better job selling whatever they're selling, because people are going to look at them as more than just a widget manufacturer.
Absolutely.
My bandwagon.
No, that's a good bandwagon to be on. We like that bandwagon. Now I see why you have a following. We have your Susan McPherson fan club. Where do we join that? Does it have a Facebook page?
Yes, I will connect you with I meant to do that, and I'm sorry I haven't.
That's okay. I'm sure they're all wonderful people, so I look forward to connecting to them. And I really love what you have to say, and I think that, I'm so excited and the potential that we have with technology to be able to really get your message out and get the type of work that you're doing to have much greater impact and reach a larger audience. Because gosh, we just need it. We need more people working in that space and more people just changing their thoughts around, how do we actually create things that are having a positive impact on our planet and the greater community of us connected on the planet. So I think it's wonderful stuff. And can you just give us a little bit about how people find you and can follow what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you can send folks to my website, which is McPherson Strategies, and it's www.mcpstrategies.com. Okay. Also on Twitter, my hashtag is Susan MCP and the number 1. So Susan McP1. Those would be the 2 best places to find me. And I can give you my email address too. It's susan@mcpstrategies.com.
Great. Well, I hope our listeners will have a chance to check out what you're doing because it's really great stuff. And follow Susan and find out what she's doing. Maybe you can engage in some of her projects there. And definitely we should all be thinking about now, can you just say the name of it again? That Tuesday, Giving Tuesday?
It's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So next Tuesday, all day long. And it's a time for you to shout at the top of your lungs to the causes you feel most positive about.
Great. And for those of you who are listening to this after that date, that doesn't mean you don't have to do it. It means take the time to do it another day and make your own day to do it.
Yeah.
But I think
every day is Giving Tuesday. My late mother used to say every day was Mother's Day. It's not a holiday.
I like that. I might have to institute that in my house. We should certainly have the Giving Tuesday, though. I like that one. And in the spirit of giving, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing with us today and for being part of our Thanksgiving week podcast interviews. And unfortunately, this will air after Thanksgiving, but that doesn't mean we're any less thankful. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and to share your thoughts, Susan. And bye-bye for now, folks. We look forward to you following the Evolving Digital Self podcast later on and take the time to subscribe and hear more great stories coming up.
Thank you for joining us for the Evolving Digital Self. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app now so that you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, please give us a rating and a review and join the Digital Self-Mastery movement to create more conscious use of technology by sharing it and telling your friends. Want to see where you fit on the digital self spectrum and how it might be impacting your business and relationships? Get your free copy of Digital Self Mastery today by clicking on the link in the show notes.